Helima, you're coming from the Kuwait Oil and Gas Show conference where these very issues were discussed. So what was the theme? What was the feel? Do we feel like we are in an environment of heightened geopolitical risk, and should a premium in markets be attached to that?
I mean, that certainly was a geopolitical backdrop that everyone was talking about, and a lot of questions about what happens next. And really, what is the role of the U.S. now in the Middle East, which was a theme of the debate last night as well. There's a sense that the U.S. is retreating, not only because of a lack of response to what has happened in Saudi Arabia with the attacks in the facilities, but also they're looking to what is happening in Syria right now, and what is happening with the U.S. withdrawing from northern Syria, what is happening with the Kurds. And there are a lot of questions about if we get into trouble in this region, key allies of the United States, like being in Kuwait, the country that really symbolizes the U.S. military involvement in the Middle East, what happens to us? And it was really interesting that you had all these questions about the U.S. role in the Middle East going forward. Well, Vladimir Putin was making a very celebrated trip to Saudi Arabia, treated like a czar, people were saying, and looking at the new deals that Russia is signing with Russia, with UAE, and the Russians essentially saying, we can mediate all of these disputes, we can sell you our defense equipment, we can be your partner.
Well, what's interesting about this, though, is, I mean, we did get news over the course of the past week and a half that the Pentagon will deploy many more troops of the U.S. in Saudi Arabia. We're going to put a couple of other missile defense systems on the ground there as well. So it's not like the U.S. is retreating fully from the Middle East.
Not fully retreating. You're right. We're sending apparently 3,000 extra troops to Saudi Arabia. There's discussion that the troops that are leaving Iraq will move potentially to Kuwait. But there's a sense that the U.S. is no longer providing the deterrence that it once did. The sense that if we did have issues with shipping lane traffic, ships being attacked, that the U.S. may not play quite the role that it had, for example, during the Iran-Iraq war, where it reflagged tankers, kept the shipping lanes open. So there is a question about how will we use those forces that are there. And in terms of the type of attacks and the missile defense systems, there's a question about, will those systems work against drone technology? Would the Patriots even have worked against those drones? I think there's a real concern at the hybrid weapons that we're seeing, drone technology in particular. We do not have adequate defenses.
What's curious to me is that it all sounds ominous. We don't know how these drones are going to go. We don't know what these attack capabilities can be actually deterred. Yet the oil market keeps slipping lower and lower gradually. Now, I say this only because we're a month removed from those attacks in Saudi Arabia.
Absolutely.
And prices are now, for WTI and Brent, down about 16 to 18% from those levels.
Retraced.
Right.
We wrote a piece over the summer called Broken Barometer, where we essentially said that 5 years ago, oil could be a leading indicator of unrest in the Middle East. Oil was above 100 when we had ISIS on the roll in Iraq. Now, oil basically is a lagging indicator. The Middle East can be a much more volatile situation than reflected in oil prices. Oil catches up only when you have something truly dramatic like September 14th. It doesn't mean in any way that the situation is anyway getting an off-ramp. It just means the market's attention is focused on other issues, focused on China trade issues, focused on economic data. And what's interesting is if you look at the Chinese oil import data for September, it was actually very, very strong. So we're not actually seeing right now a real pullback in Chinese oil imports, but we're very focused on the broader story of a global slowdown.
Yet oil prices keep falling. Helima Croft,
thank you
very much for joining us this morning.